We all have our rough days, and it's quite normal that when we're going through difficult things, we don't really notice other people's problems around us because we're just trying to get through every day. That's why it's so surprising when you hear the story of Joseph, who's sitting languishing in a prison, and he's there by no fault of his own, wasting every day of his potential, but he still notices that the royal butler and the royal baker, who are his cellmates, are looking downcast one morning. And you think, how did he even pay attention to the fact that they were in a bad state of mind? Besides which, they were in prison. And surely that's reason enough for them to feel depressed. It's no major surprise that they're looking glum. And think about who they were. This is the royal butler and the royal baker. It's their good friend and henchman, who was the royal butcher, whether that's literal or euphemistic, who threw Joseph in prison. These are not his friends. These are people he associates with all of the things that had gone wrong in his life. He could so easily have just turned his back and said, well, they're having a tough time, so am I. And yet, he takes an interest. And he asks them, why are you looking so down today? Which in turn leads them to share their dreams, which he then interprets, and his interpretations come true, which then positions him, albeit a few years later, in an advantageous position where the royal butler is able to say to Pharaoh, when Pharaoh's battling with his own dreams that haunt him and he doesn't know how to make head or tail of them, he says, you know, there's this guy that we met in the prison and he interpreted my dream and maybe he could help you, which leads to the release of Joseph, and then he's catapulting into fame and becoming the most powerful person in the entire developed world because he took the time to pay attention to other people going through rough things at the same time he was going through rough things, people he had no affinity to, people he probably held resentment towards, and yet he took an interest in their lives, and that became the catalyst for the greatest blessing in his own life. And the Rebbe points out that that holds a tremendous message for us. While we could justify getting so trapped inside our own difficulties that we don't have the capacity to look out for other people, we have to, as they say, put on your own mask first, fill your cup, and all the other feel-good teachings of the world that say, build yourself up, and only then can you care for others. And the Rebbe says the Torah is teaching us such a powerful lesson that if we do look kindly on somebody else, and if we show concern to other people, people who are not part of our community, they're not part of our social circle, they're not necessarily associated with the same value system that we have, perhaps even people who we resent, when we show care for other people, it will always come back to bring us goodness and blessing and success.